Thank you for listening to the Dog Trainers Podcast, a podcast created by dog trainers for dog trainers, or anyone who's ever fallen in love with man's best friend.
Episode 33, The Major Disagreement, Pure Positive versus Balanced Training.
Let's see, what else we got? The time that it should take to condition and train your dog. I think this is something that we see as a huge difference, right?
Yeah, can I touch on this really quick? Yeah. Here was one that you kind of outlined in a way that I thought was really helpful. Because when we originally wrote this down, time it takes to condition, we wrote it down to mean this. Largely, we feel that balanced dog trainers are very much about like, hey, 3-4 week board and train program. And we're seeing kind of the whole like 2 week thing and all that stuff now. And it's very much like, I can knock this out in X amount of lessons. I can knock this out in X amount of weeks. Whereas a lot of balanced dog trainers are like, hey, what's your rush? You know, isn't it more important to teach this the right way? Isn't it more important to make sure that your dog has fun?
Balanced or purely positive?
That's purely positive. The who's not in a rush. The balanced people are more like, hey, we can do this like quickly, you know? And so that's kind of the big disconnect as I see it. But what I wanted to touch on before I let you kind of riff is the extra bit that you laid out that I thought was extremely important was, it is absolutely a good point when we're talking about time it takes to condition is we also have to consider how long that conditioning lasts. That factors in too, right? If I bought a cell phone for $200 and it's going to last me 10 years, it's a better buy than a $100 cell phone that's going to last me 1 year, right? So I think that factors in. So ultimately, it seems like the major agreement is balanced dog trainers believe in getting it done quickly. Pure positive trainers believe in getting it done the right way. And the science does show that more reward-based conditioning tends to hold up longer. But then again, if you have a way to correct, you can always correct, you know? So it's an interesting one, but go ahead. I want to hear your take on this as well.
Yeah, I think time it takes to condition, definitely, I think one of the big differences, positive dog training does take longer time because you have to develop things in its component pieces, like one sliver and layer at a time. What I've seen when I've done a lot of positive work is, it's a slow process until it clicks on the dog. When something clicks on the dog and the dog goes, oh, that's how I get the thing that I wanted. Now we start seeing kind of like a leap forward, this quantum leap forward in some of our work. But sometimes that takes weeks. Could take days. It could take weeks. It could take just a number of sessions. It really depends on the dog and what the behavior is we're trying to train. But yeah, ultimately positive reinforcement training does take longer when dealing with certain types of issues. It definitely doesn't take longer when teaching a sit or a down or a stay or anything like that. Not at all. But when we're starting dealing with like behavior mod, or we're starting to deal with, kind of what's it called? Dealing with distractions in general. Mm-hmm. That's where we have to be very. That's where I think the clash is when we start dealing with distraction work, because I would say the fastest way to teach sitting down and heel and stuff like that, totally food work, right? Totally food work. How do I teach a dog not to pull? Well, aversives, like that's going to be a little bit easier to teach our dogs what not to do when we are using aversives versus just trying to rely on motivation and timing. Again, easier. And the time to conditioning. Balanced dog training tends to be a little bit more expedited, right? Because we're using tools and we're using some aversive. So is that the point? That's what you were talking about?
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, it was perfect no matter what, because I wanted to hear you riff on it anyway. But yeah, you touched on that beautifully. And I think that you jogged my memory. I want to say it was Sean O'Shea who I heard say this, and you tell me if you agree or disagree. Sean O'Shea made this point. I think it was in his first book, and I believe his second book. I saw him post that it just got finished, so it should be out soon if it's not out already. If I'm wrong about that, sorry, bro. But in the first book, he talked about the difference between food versus like a corrective method, and the way he broke it down in simple terms, because he's really good at that, is food is an excellent way to, I mean, what it does, it motivates and it creates a lot of things, excitement and focus and energy and so on, all of which are very valuable things in dog training. But if the goal is to get less of something, not more, it's hard to get less of something with food.
Mm.
And that's kind of the delineation he drew. Like, I can get sits all day long with food. I can't get less, jumping on me or less whatever with rewards, because of course the dog jumps on you and you go no, and the dog sits down and you reward him, good boy, and they go, I'm a good boy, I get food, boom, and they jump again because they're excited, and uh,
Yeah.
and certainly that's not like a 100% solid rule, but I thought that he worded that nicely.
Yeah. And I think, I mean, that the general strategy would be, I want to develop and condition a desire and obsession in the dog so that I could undo that bad behavior, or I could use
Right.
it against that bad behavior, which makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about cost of training, and I think that this can be a multifaceted approach. Maybe we talked about it a little bit already, but I just want to touch on it, one good time, since we're breaking down like the major differences as we see them. That
Right.
cost of training, of course, being like money cost, right? If one takes longer, then it costs more because it took longer, and the trainer's time is worth whatever they, charge for their time.
Mhm.
But also, I think factored into cost, I'm going to argue on behalf of both sides there, and then I'll let you kind of take it away. Is
Mhm.
the balanced dog trainer would say, hey man, money aside, I can do this in less time. Time is an invaluable resource that you cannot get back. That's cost.
Right.
They would also say, I can button this down quickly. I can mitigate risk. Like, how do you put a price on making your dog safer sooner?
Mhm.
Whereas the pure positive trainer would argue, yeah, you can get it done that way, but at what cost to your dog and your relationship, and and their emotion and everything else. And I think that there are some solid points on either side. So I just wanted to kind of lay that out, and let you go ahead and take it away.
Yeah. So, to what cost are we picking stuff? Again, this is all context. Context is the most important thing. This is where it's really the decision of the dog owner itself, right? Because they are the ones that are in essence are paying their in both their time and money.
Hmm.
They're the ones that really have to weigh out what their values and what's important to them at any given time. Again, when we're dealing with really high risk situations, I would like to think that most dog trainers are on the same page as far as safety protocols, right? Muzzles, certain types of leashes, just making, avoidance of certain things for sure.
Hmm.
Uh, but definitely we start seeing that, um, certain approaches in dog training offer, uh, you know, different costs, right? And if I was a positive reinforcement only trainer, which I do a lot of positive work, I do a lot of, food based, what's it called? Behavior mod. I do a lot of, I definitely understand it, but I also understand where a correction comes in. It's really heavy on the time. It's really heavy on the time. And sometimes certain methods in positive reinforcement, as there are certain methods in balance training, um, can the other question I have to ask myself is, can the owners do these things consistently? Do they have the time to do it? Do they have the personality to do this? Do they have the schedule or the organizational skills to actually do these things in general? And based on those things, I also have to choose what my approach could be,
Hmm.
right? Should be, right? If I do have a person who wants to put in the work and they want a specific outcome, I might do, 10 to 15 private sessions with that person. If I have a person who's very high risk, um, I might do 10 to 15 positive, pure positive or mostly positive work with that person. If I have a dog who is high risk, if I have an owner who doesn't have a lot of time, if I have an owner who doesn't have a lot of money, but our cumulative goal is, how can we keep this dog safe? How can we keep the public safe? How can we make sure that the owner, is feeling more secure and has a better management system? Then we will probably be going more towards balanced dog training style work, right? And so yeah, so we kind of have to look at also the owner as well, um, and they're also going to be the ones that are deciding what the cost, to what cost, right?
Right. Can I say on a personal level,
Yeah.
um, I personally find that particular piece of the puzzle, the owner, to be like my single biggest reason for being a balanced dog trainer as opposed to pure positive.
Right.
Because I try to be realistic in their own limitations and their own capabilities, and um, it's an interesting one because this makes me think of Ian Dunbar, right? Dr. Ian Dunbar, who he says, I've got his quote up here. It's, to use a shock collar as an effective dog training method, you will need a thorough understanding of canine behavior, a thorough understanding of learning theory, and impeccable timing. And if you have those three things, you don't need a shock collar, right? And do I believe that Dr. Ian Dunbar himself can train a lot of reactive dogs or otherwise, difficult dogs himself? Yes. Do I believe that he can do all this masterful work and then give these dogs back to clients and them continue this? Not necessarily, not to the same extent. And that's where tools, I think, really come into their own. Is you've got to be practical about these things, and you've got to understand, like again, it's the whole realistic versus idealistic. It's like, yeah, should you? Maybe, and could you? Maybe, yeah, like possibly. Could I be 190 pounds of lean muscle? Yeah, probably. But is it like realistic for me to do it? No, So, I do think that that's definitely, in my opinion, the single biggest reason that I choose to be a balanced dog trainer.
Yeah, I mean the diversity is really important. However, I think there is always a lot more. This turns into politics, right? These are the politics of dog training. I think there's a lot more that balanced dog trainers do need to understand about the positive reinforcement spectrum of dog training, about how classical conditioning works, about behavior mod using food and motivators and things like that. To use those more as a tool, because I think there's such immediate gratification when using certain types of tools in dog training, whether in food being one of them, mind you, right? I can feel so cocky as a dog trainer. If I have a cookie in my hand, I can get the dog to do whatever the hell I want. The same way I can feel so cocky if I have a pinch collar or a e-collar on my dog, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or I feel so secure that I can get a behavior out of them. But I really feel, and again, this is something for this podcast. I really feel that it's important, and it's our duty as the host of this podcast. I really want to invite some of these positive reinforcement trainers on to help educate our listeners, because you know what, man, like we all have the same goal. We all want to help dogs. We all want to really, really be better. We want to be more technical. We want to be more precise. Everyone wants to do those things. And I think the only way that we'll ever get to do that is if we actually get to listen to each other and learn what everyone has to teach. So we are reaching out to a handful of positive only trainers, so that we can kind of get their take on this type of work. So that we can understand the arguments and understand the context which things work. I think unless we actually want to hear someone explain themselves all the way through, we'll never fully understand their point of view or their side, and that doesn't help us with growth, right? I think it's really important that we sit down and we talk to people who think different than us. And that we try and understand their points, so that we can add those tools and that common sense and that wisdom to our repertoire. Because there may be a dog, maybe not today, maybe not next week, maybe not this year, but there will be a dog at some point. You're going to go, fuck, I'm so glad I listened to this person, because now I have an approach that I can work on with this dog.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with that enough. That food work, pure positive work has innumerable benefit. This is me speaking as a balanced dog trainer, that upping my like motivational based game has really transformed the progress and the process that I've had with board and trained dogs, private lesson clients. The overall kind of look and feel of how your package of lessons goes with clients, like how the whole training, arc kind of goes with its ups and downs.
And how the dog looks too.
Exactly. How the dog looks too. Yeah. I mean, there's absolutely so much benefit to working with reinforcing and positive method and stuff like that. I don't want to downplay that at all. I don't want to sound like we're picking sides. I mean, I personally have my beliefs. I know you do too, but yeah. This is the Dog Trainers Podcast because it's for you guys, and we want you guys to have that opportunity to hear these discussions and learn how to listen. It's kind of hard for people to do these days, I think. And yeah, again, please help us reach out to positive trainers. We're doing it too, so again, I can't stress this enough that there is a lot of work that goes into this stuff that you guys don't always get to hear about because it just doesn't shake out for one reason or another. But we're always reaching out to people, always trying to see how we can continue to add value to you. And we're just asking for a little bit of help. Throw some names at us or invite them on our behalf and kind of put us in touch one way or another. And, let's see what we can do. We all just want training to continue to improve so that dogs get better, faster, and, less or more efficiently, I should say, and just kind of push this thing on.
Yeah. Well, I love it, man. I love it. We had some cool people coming up in the next couple of episodes, guys. So stay tuned. Really excited about that. Again, this was just more of us wanting to understand what these friction points were. Let's open up our minds a little bit to, maybe having conversations and understanding, maybe exploring different ideologies in dog training, and really get to understand those arguments. So that way we can become better all together. Again, my name is Brent LaBrada, and that guy over there is Mariano Alvarez. If you guys really liked this episode or you thought that it was helpful or that it could help someone, please do us a favor and share it with at least one other person. Again, you guys can find us on all major podcast platforms. Go ahead and check us out on Instagram at Dog Trainers Podcast, and on Facebook as well. Again, this is episode 33, The Major Disagreement, Pure Positive versus Balanced Dog Training. And we can't wait to see you guys in episode 34. All right. We love you guys so much. You guys have a great rest of your week. Peace. Take care.
Take care. Thank you for listening to the Dog Trainers Podcast, a podcast created by dog trainers, for dog trainers, or anyone who's ever fallen in love with man's best friend.
We really hope you guys enjoyed this episode, and we hope to see you back for the next one. But in the meantime, please follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Dog Trainers Podcast. Go ahead and leave a comment. Ask us any questions that you want. We would love to connect with our dog trainer communities all around the world. Take care, guys. We'll see you next time.